We have all heard of death, but have you ever truly asked yourself, what is death? Why is it an inseparable part of life? And is there a way for us to face it not just with logic, but with the depth of our hearts? Long ago in the land of ancient Egypt, death was never seen as an end. For them, death was a transition, a gateway from the material world into a sacred realm. The Egyptians believed that death was not destruction, but part of an eternal cycle, a continuous process of ending and rebirth. And in that deep, enduring belief, they created a magnificent treasure, a map for the soul to navigate the challenges beyond life to continue its sacred journey. You may have heard of the Book of the Dead, but it is not merely a book about death. It is a guide, a sacred manuscript to help one overcome the hardships awaiting after physical departure. Within its pages, death is not treated as a final stop, but as the beginning of a new adventure. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not fearsome. It was the opening of a new door, a second chance for the soul to evolve to transcend. And perhaps this understanding still offers us precious lessons today. When we face loss, uncertainty, or the fear of mortality, can we open ourselves to a wisdom older than time? A wisdom that whispers death is simply a chapter, not the end of the story. We children of the modern world can learn from this. We can learn to face death with understanding, with reverence. We can embrace life more deeply when we realize our journey doesn't end at the grave. It continues beyond in ways even grander than we can imagine. We do not need to wait until the end to uncover this truth. We can live each day as a pilgrimage, a sacred adventure, where every breath, every smile, every tear becomes a part of the soul's eternal unfolding. Remember this: death is not the end. It is only a transformation that we can learn to understand and welcome, following the footsteps of those who came before. The birth of a sacred map. Unlike the books we know today, the Book of the Dead had no single author. It was not written overnight, nor was it confined to rigid doctrine. It was a living tradition, a sacred current passed down through countless generations, from the walls of ancient pyramids to the papyrus scrolls of later eras. Initially, this wisdom was reserved for the pharaohs, the divine kings. Sacred spells, prayers, and rituals were carved onto cold stone walls, serving as a roadmap for the pharaoh's soul to navigate the underworld's perils and ascend to divine realms. But over time, a quiet miracle unfolded. The gates of eternity widened. The privilege of preparing for the afterlife slowly expanded beyond royalty. By the Middle Kingdom, around 2100 BCE, sacred texts began to appear inside the dominions of nobles and officials. The knowledge of immortality was no longer confined to kings. With the right devotion, the right understanding, even ordinary individuals could aspire to transcend death and join the divine dance of the cosmos, a revolution of the soul. Can you see it? This was not just a shift in religious practice. It was a transformation in the way humans understood their worth. Once you needed royal blood to dream of immortality, now you only needed a heart aligned with truth. A life lived with sincerity, with justice, with love. This quiet revolution still echoes today in a world often obsessed with titles and wealth. The ancient Egyptians remind us it is not your status that carries you across the stars, but the weight or lightness of your heart, a journey personalized for every soul. Each copy of the Book of the Dead was unique. Skilled scribes crafted individual scrolls according to the desires, beliefs, and hopes of the deceased. Some scrolls stretched over 20 meters long, illuminated with brilliant colors, depicting vivid scenes of the soul's journey. Others were simpler, containing only the most essential spells. Regardless of richness or modesty, every scroll had one sacred purpose: to equip the soul for the unknown paths beyond the grave, to protect it, to guide it, to empower it. Not just spells, but mirrors of the soul. The true magic of the Book of the Dead was not in spells or rituals alone. It was in the invitation it offered to transform from within. The spells were not tricks to cheat the gods. They were reflections, mirrors held up to the soul, demanding honesty, integrity, and inner purification. Through sacred declarations, through affirmations of innocence, the soul did not merely seek protection. It practiced truthfulness. It rehearsed a life well lived. And in doing so, the soul prepared not only for death, but for something far greater: rebirth into eternal light. A lesson for our time. Perhaps now more than ever, we need to remember, life is not about reaching some grand destination. It's about how we walk the path with honesty, compassion, and courage. You don't need a 20-meter scroll to find your way. You only need your own heart, a heart that listens to truth, that chooses love over fear, that keeps walking, even when the way is dark. Because in the end, the real book of the dead is not written in ancient hieroglyphs. It is written every day in the invisible ink of your choices, your kindness, your quiet acts of courage. Death is not the end. It is a beginning, a sacred doorway, and every step you take today prepares you to walk through it in grace. There was once a time among the gleaming limestone temples under the blinding desert sun when only the pharaohs, the living gods, were granted the sacred provisions for the journey after death. Sacred inscriptions carved into pyramid walls, spells paintings of the afterlife, all served as secret maps reserved for those born under the favor of the divine. It was a world where immortality was a privilege, a world where eternity belonged only to those who wore crowns, while the rest of humanity bowed helplessly before the harsh laws of time. But then, just as the Nile sometimes flows gently and other times surges wildly, the river of history began to carry subtle, profound changes. A quiet miracle unfolded, not with the clash of swords, but through the soft, unstoppable yearning within every human soul. When the gates were thrown open, around 2100 BCE during the Middle Kingdom period, the sacred texts, once confined to the walls of royal tombs, began to appear inside the wooden coffins of nobles. These are what archaeologists today call the coffin texts. For the first time, officials, aristocrats, those who once merely watched kings ascend into the afterlife, began preparing their own soul's provisions. They inscribed prayers, spells, and instructions onto the very coffins that would cradle their bodies on the final night. And not long after, even those without noble blood, those with only sincere faith and the means to conduct the proper rituals, could dare to dream of the immortal journey once reserved for the gods, a turning point in human consciousness. Do you see it? This wasn't just a shift in burial customs. It was a revolution in how human beings understood their own worth. Before, to hope for immortality, you had to be born exalted. Now all you needed was a heart aligned with truth, a life lived with sincerity and justice. If you lived fairly, if you treated the world with honesty and compassion, you were worthy of eternity. No crown needed, no palace required. It's one of the most beautiful truths that the ancient Egyptians have gifted to humanity. And even today, in a world still tangled in inequality and prejudice, this ancient whisper still speaks. Your true worth is not where you were born. It is how you live. When papyrus scrolls carried dreams. By the New Kingdom around 1550 BCE, sacred wisdom bloomed even further. The Book of the Dead, known to the Egyptians as the Book of Coming Forth by Day, began appearing as richly decorated papyrus scrolls buried with the deceased. Families would commission professional scribes to craft personalized scrolls, each one tailored to the dreams, fears, and hopes of the person making the journey. Each scroll was like a hand-drawn map containing prayers, spells, illustrations of the perilous pathways of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, and the rituals needed to cross it safely. Some scrolls were masterpieces, dazzling with color, stretching tens of meters long, filled with images of gods, monsters, gates, and rivers of fire. Others were modest, only a few essential spells written with simple ink. But whether grand or humble, every scroll carried one sacred dream, the dream of immortality, the dream that the soul could rise again, shining beyond death, the light for all. Do you see it? The light was no longer reserved for the powerful. The light had been offered to every heart willing to walk the path. The ancient Egyptians quietly built a spiritual world where every person, regardless of wealth, status, or birth, could aspire to step into eternity, provided they lived with truth and righteousness. In how they viewed death, there is a timeless message. It is not your title that matters, it is the purity of your heart. A precious lesson for us today. Maybe the greatest teaching this evolution of the Book of the Dead offers us is, you don't have to wait for someone to grant you permission to seek immortality. You don't have to wish you were someone else. You already hold the seeds of eternity within your own life. Every act of kindness, every moment of integrity is a brushstroke, painting the story of your soul across the canvas of time. You walking your quiet paths of love, compassion, and resilience, it are forging your own sacred scroll, a map that no darkness can erase. The journey is already yours. You don't need a golden tomb. You don't need a scribe's careful hand to inscribe your deeds on papyrus. Every thought, every action, every word of love you offer today is already writing your eternal story. And when the time comes for you to step into your own Duat, you will not walk in fear. You will walk by the light you yourself have kindled, a light that will guide you safely through any shadow. From my heart to yours, if there's one whisper I could leave with you today, it's this: you are already enough. You are already walking a sacred journey. You are already writing a scroll of light with your life. Don't wait for some grand future moment to start living fully. Live now, love now, walk your path now, even if your steps are small and trembling, because every heartbeat matters. Every breath is a note in the song of your soul. Every choice made with love is a star lighting your way across eternity. You are not forgotten. You are not insignificant. You are the traveler the universe has been waiting for. And your journey, luminous, fragile, unstoppable, is already underway. When a soul leaves its earthly body, its journey through the unseen does not simply unfold as an adventure. It unfolds as a judgment, an ultimate test that no one can escape. And at the center of that test, there is no judge harsher than the heart itself. The ancient Egyptians believed that every soul, after stepping through the doorway of death, would face a sacred ritual, the weighing of the heart. No arguments, no excuses. Only awaken. The heart, the secret chamber recording every thought, every deed, every memory, would testify in absolute silence. The heart as a secret diary. Imagine your soul trembling, yet hopeful, walking into a grand hall bathed in golden light. The Hall of Maat. There Osiris, the god of death and resurrection, sits upon his throne, rounded by 42 divine judges, each representing a cosmic law of truth, compassion, justice, loyalty. You step forward, barehanded, barehearted. Before you stands a sacred scale. On one side, your heart. On the other, the feather of Maat, the embodiment of cosmic balance and absolute truth. If your heart is as light as the feather, meaning you lived with honesty, fairness, and kindness, you will be allowed to continue your journey toward eternal light. But if your heart is heavy, burdened with lies, cruelty, selfishness, the path ahead will be closed forever. No one can fake it. No one can bribe the scales. Because the law of the universe is unwavering. Truth is not a punishment. It is the doorway to liberation. The ancient Egyptians did not believe the gods sat waiting to condemn. They believed the soul's very nature would reveal itself through its weight. If you lived a life in harmony with Maat, with fairness, honesty, and compassion, you need not fear. But if you spent your days weaving deceit, harming others, breaking the sacred balance, then your own heart would betray you. The voice of conscience never falls silent. Not here, not in eternity. The declaration of innocence. The negative confession. Before stepping onto the scale, every soul would recite a hauntingly beautiful hymn, the Declaration of Innocence. This was not a plea for mercy, nor was it a desperate bargaining. It was a solemn, unwavering proclamation of one's truest self. I have not committed evil. I have not lied. I have not stolen. I have not killed. I have not betrayed trust. Each sentence sharp and clear, sliced through layers of illusion, revealing the naked truth beneath. Can you feel the strength hidden in those words? This was not arrogance. It was the calm certainty of a life lived in sincerity, the radiant light of a heart that had nothing left to conceal, the price of failure. But if the heart weighed heavy, if it could not affirm truth, then a terrible fate awaited. There was no eternal hellfire, no endless torment. Only Ammit, the monstrous devourer, a creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. If Ammit devoured your heart, your soul would not be tortured. It would be erased, forgotten by the universe, lost forever to oblivion. Thus, true death was not the end of breath, but the loss of being, the vanishing from all memory. A lesson carved in eternity. Do you see the profound humanity in this ancient vision? No external authority determined your fate. No random chance saved or condemned you. Only the weight of your own choices decided. Each act of kindness, each betrayal, each moment of cowardice or courage became another grain of sand upon the scale. If you lived in truth, your heart grew lighter day by day. If you lived in deceit, your heart grew heavy with the chains you forged yourself. The beauty of it all was this: you were not doomed by birth. You were shaped by how you lived, and you had the power every single day to change the weight of your heart. From my heart to yours, if I could whisper one truth to you by now, it would be this: listen to your heart. Let your choices be a testament that says, I loved with all I had. I lived honestly. I betrayed neither myself nor the light within me. Then when the day comes when you stand before the scales of the universe, you will not tremble, you will not plead, you will smile light and free because you know you live fully, you live true, and that is all eternity ever asked of you. If the soul successfully passed the judgment of the heart, the next door would open before them. But it was not yet a serene paradise as we often imagine. No, the journey was still long, still filled with mysteries and unseen challenges. That was the moment when the soul stepped into a strange, vast world known as the Duat, the realm of shadows, illusions, and the final great test for the brave. The Duat, the mirror of the soul. The Duat was not like the hell described in modern religions. It was not a place of endless punishment by fire. To the Egyptians, the Duat was a transitional realm, a space every soul had to traverse regardless of merit or guilt. It was a place where light and darkness intertwined, where black rivers rushed fiercely, where shadowy gates stood guarded by serpent-headed beings, where volcanoes of eternal flame blazed silently and lakes of darkness whispered to the traveler. There were no fixed maps, no shortcuts, only the soul walking with whatever inner light and wisdom they had cultivated in life. Walking through darkness with inner light. You see, the Duat was not the enemy. It was the final profound teacher. It was the crucible where the soul faced the ultimate question. Who are you when there is nothing left to hide behind? To survive the Duat, a soul needed far more than spells or rituals. They needed deep self-knowledge, knowledge of their fears, knowledge of their attachments, knowledge of the shadows they had refused to face while living. In the Duat, every illusion would shatter. Every false mask would fall away. The soul would meet itself raw, unguarded, unhidden. Some souls would walk with quiet certainty, having faced themselves long before death. Others would wander lost, consumed by the illusions they had clung to all their lives, the gates and the challenges. The Duat was divided into 12 parts, each representing an hour of the night, a divine mirror of the sun god, Ray's nightly voyage through the underworld. Each segment brought its own trial. Each gate was guarded by a being who would ask riddles, demand passwords, challenge identity. If the soul could not answer, they would be trapped, lost in the labyrinth of shifting illusions. And often the greatest obstacles were not external monsters, but the soul's own fears, attachments, and self-deceptions. Pep, the serpent of chaos. In the deepest shadows of the Duat lurked an ancient terror. Apep, the great serpent of annihilation, embodiment of chaos itself. Every night, even Ra had to battle Apep to ensure that light would return. And so too would every soul sooner or later face their personal Apep, the force of despair, confusion, and self-destruction. Apep could not be defeated with physical weapons. Only inner resilience, faith, and unbreakable light of spirit could weaken him, pass, or be consumed. You see, the Duat was not a place for easy victories. It was a forged testing whether the soul truly deserved rebirth. If you endured, you would rise, reborn radiant. If you failed, you would dissolve, scattered among the shadows, forgotten. The Duat, trial by love and courage. In our modern world, we no longer believe in a literal Duat. But look deeper, and you'll realize we each walk through our own Duat every time life tests us. Every heartbreak, every loss, every moment we face our deepest fears. These are our personal nights in the Duat. Each time you choose forgiveness over resentment. Each time you choose hope over despair. Each time you choose truth when it would be easier to lie. You are passing through a gate, not by muscle, not by intellect, but by the quiet, unyielding light within you. The Duat was not a punishment. The Duat was not built to torment the soul. It was a sacred place of transformation, a mirror to force the soul to reckon with its true self. It was not meant to destroy, but to purify. Only those who faced themselves humbly, honestly, bravely, could emerge on the other side reborn. Opportunities for transformation. The Duat also offered the soul a chance to reclaim forgotten wisdom, to shed the heavy identities of fear and pride to align more deeply with divine forces. Many spells in the Book of the Dead began with the phrase, I am the lotus blooming at dawn. I am the falcon of Horus. I am the flame that purifies the path. This was not arrogance. This was spiritual alchemy, a sacred merging with the powers of creation, a rebirth into a higher existence. Each challenge, each monster, each trial was a symbol not of destruction, but of inner mastery. From my heart to yours. If I could whisper something to you now, it would be this. Do not fear the nights you walk alone. Do not despair when darkness surrounds you. Every hardship you endure, Every shadow you face is carving your wings in the dark. You are not wandering aimlessly. You are becoming even when you stumble, even when you doubt, even when you cannot yet see the dawn. The soul that dares to walk through the night trusting in a light it cannot yet see is the soul destined to rise. You are not lost. You are on your sacred journey, and the universe vast, ancient, tender is walking every step with you, even now. After the soul has crossed the gates of the Duat, after it has overcome fear illusions and darkness, what unfolds before it is not merely survival. It is the doorway to something far greater, a realm where the line between mortal and divine dissolves. This is not just a reward, it is a sacred transformation. Rebirth no longer human, but light itself. The ancient Egyptians believed that after traversing the death trials, the soul did not simply return to who it had been. It became something far higher. They called it becoming an Osiris. Osiris was not just the Lord of the dead, he was the eternal symbol of resurrection. The living proof that death was never an end, but a transition to a new luminous existence. The soul, having proven its worth, would no longer be a fragile reflection of its earthly self. It would now be woven into the eternal rhythms of the cosmos, becoming an immortal light in the great cycle of existence. Rebirth is not a return, it is an ascension. When we think of rebirth, we often imagine returning to what once was, to a former life, a lost youth. But to the Egyptians, rebirth was not a return. It was a rising forward. The soul, purified through the fires of its trials, would ascend to a higher state of being. It could take on sacred forms. The soaring falcon of Horus, cutting through the heavens. The lotus blooming anew each morning, bathed in golden light. The shining star that watches over the night. Each form was a symbol of victory. Victory not only over death, but over fear, ignorance, and all mortal limitations. The field of reeds. A world of peace for many souls, the most cherished destination was not power or grandeur, but simple, enduring peace. They entered the field of reeds, an endless golden landscape of calm waters and flowering meadows. There the soul would live the life it had dreamed of, a life without sorrow, without sickness, without separation. They would reunite with loved ones who had gone before. They would tend to fertile fields under eternal sunshine. They would sing, laugh, and walk freely under skies that never darkened. Not a reward for power, but for truthfulness. Can you see it? Despite the grandeur of the journey, the soul's reward was not for might or conquest. It was for integrity. For having lived truthfully, for holding kindness even when it was hard, for keeping one's inner light shining even when the world grew dark. You didn't have to be a king. You didn't need to command armies. You only needed a heart that chose love, truth, and courage again and again. The name, the immortal thread. In Egyptian belief, the soul's name, the Ren, was essential for immortality. As long as your name was remembered, you lived on. If your name was forgotten, you truly perished. That's why names were carved in stone, whispered in prayers, painted across tombs and temples. The Egyptians understood true immortality lies not in monuments, but in the memories, the love, and the light we leave behind in others. A lesson for us. This journey is not just about those who have died. It's about us, the living souls weaving our stories today. Every act of kindness, every word of honesty, every courageous moment of love. These are the seeds of our eternity. You don't have to wait for death to become light. You can begin now. Every time you forgive, every time you lift another's burden, every time you choose compassion over bitterness, you rise. The journey is within you now. You don't need ancient scrolls or elaborate rituals. The sacred map already lives within your heart. Every decision you make to love more deeply, to speak more truly, to heal, rather than harm, is a step on your own path of rebirth. You are already writing your own book of coming forth by day from my heart to yours. If there's one whisper I would offer you now, it's this: don't wait for a perfect moment to start living fully. Don't wait for certainty or permission. Live your rebirth now. Be your own rising sun. Because every time you choose love over fear, hope over despair, truth over illusion, you are planting your feet firmly on the fields of eternity. You are a star being born from the darkness. You are a lotus reaching for the light. And one day when you step fully into your immortality, you will realize it was never about escaping death. It was always about remembering the divine light you already are. After all the steps through darkness, after the silent battles fought within, After the moments where we stood face to face with our own fears and frailties, a simple truth reveals itself. We were never born merely to exist. We were born to awaken. Awakening is not a blinding flash of light. It is like a slow sunrise softly coloring the horizon after a long cold night. It arrives in the small choices made each day, choosing love over anger, choosing hope over despair, choosing truth over convenient lies. The final lesson of an ancient book. When the Egyptians wrote the Book of the Dead, they were not only thinking about death, they were thinking about how to live. They folded into each spell, each prayer, a timeless message. Live so that when you cross the final threshold, your heart will be light enough to fly. Live so that your name will be remembered with love and honor. Live so that when you meet yourself in the end, you can smile without regret. Not through power, not through wealth, not through conquest, but through a heart that chose love, truth, and courage, the universe within you. Maybe you have never seen ancient hieroglyphs. Maybe you do not know the sacred spells of Egypt, but it doesn't matter. Because everything that ancient knowledge sought to teach already lives inside you. Every time you choose forgiveness, you speak a spell stronger than any magic. Every time you love unconditionally, you open a hidden gate inside your soul. Every time you rise after falling, you weave a scroll of light within your being. You don't need to travel to distant lands. You don't need to memorize ancient texts. You only need to listen to the quiet, steady voice of your own soul. And when death truly comes, when the true moment arrives, you will not tremble, you will not plead, you will not rage against the dying of the light. You will step forward as if into an old familiar house. You will smile because you know this life, with all its scars, its laughter, its heartbreaks. You lived it fully, you cried, you loved, you forgave. You fell and you rose again. Not as a victim, but as a traveler, as a student of the universe, as a soul who learned how to become light. There is no death for a soul that knows how to love and live in truth. There is only continuation, a new journey, a new song, a new eternal sunrise. The true meaning of preservation. In Egyptian belief, preserving the name the Ren was crucial not merely to survive in the afterlife, but to ensure that one's essence remained a living part of the cosmos. As long as someone remembers your name, as long as your kindness lives on in the memories of others, you live, not in stone monuments, not in wealth, but in the echo of your goodness, carried quietly through the souls you touched. Life sacred in every moment. The Book of the Dead whispers to us, every thought you have today, every choice you make today, every word you speak today is already shaping your future beyond death. You don't need to wait until the end to prepare. You are on the journey now. Every breath is an opportunity to awaken. Every tear, every smile, every act of love writes your soul's story into the fabric of eternity. No need for distant magic. You might wonder, but I don't have ancient spells. I don't have sacred scrolls. You don't need them. Because the truest spells are made of compassion, forgiveness, and courage. Every act of kindness you choose, every silent battle you win against anger or fear, etches sacred words into the eternal book of your life. The universe does not forget those who choose light. Why do some souls shine across millennia while others fade? Because those souls chose to live not for themselves but for the light. They live not seeking greatness, but simply trying to be true. And the universe, vast and ageless, never forgets a soul that chooses light. The awakening begins now. You don't have to wait. You can begin your awakening today. Let go of the resentments weighing your heart. Forgive yourself for your past mistakes. Stand back up after every fall with your eyes still seeking the sunrise. Rebirth doesn't come from the outside. It is a sacred decision from within to refuse to be defined by darkness, to become the star burning against the night from my heart to yours. If I could whisper one truth into your ear, now it would be, do not fear the dark nights you must walk through. Do not despair when the way ahead seems lost. For every shadow you face with courage, for every tear you shed with dignity, for every moment you choose love, in the face of fear you are not falling, you are growing wings. One day when you look back, you will see, not a single tear was wasted, not a single heartbreak was meaningless. Every moment was carving your soul into a being of pure light, capable of soaring freely beyond death, beyond time, into the eternal embrace of the cosmos. You are light, you always have been, and your journey, luminous, fragile, magnificent, has only just begun. After all the steps through darkness, after all the silent battles we fought within ourselves, after all the moments we faced our own fears and brokenness, a simple and profound truth emerges. We were never born merely to survive. We were born to awaken. Awakening is not a blinding flash of realization. It is like a soft dawn that gently paints the sky after a long night. It comes through the small choices we make each day, choosing love over anger, choosing hope over despair, choosing truth over the easy lie. The final lesson from a millennial-old book: when the ancient Egyptians composed the Book of the Dead, they were not solely focused on death. They were focused on how to live. They wove into every spell, every prayer, a timeless message. Live so that when you cross the final threshold, your heart is light enough to soar. Live so that your name is remembered with love and reverence. Live so that when you meet yourself at the end, you can smile without regret. It was never about power, never about wealth, never about status. It was about a heart that chose love, truth and courage through every storm, the universe within you. Perhaps you have never seen the ancient papyrus scrolls. Perhaps you have never uttered an ancient spell, but that doesn't matter, because the truth they sought to preserve already lives inside you. Every time you choose forgiveness, you utter a sacred spell mightier than magic. Every time you choose to love without conditions, you open a hidden gateway within your soul. Every time you rise after falling, you are weaving your own sacred scroll of light. You don't need distant temples, you don't need ancient rituals. You only need to listen to the quiet but steady heartbeat of your soul. And then when true death comes, when that moment finally arrives, you will not tremble, you will not resist, you will walk through the door like someone returning home. You will smile because you know this life, with all its wounds, its laughter, its heartbreaks. You lived it with all your being. You cried, you loved, you forgave, you stumbled, and you rose not as a victim, but as a pilgrim of light, as a soul who learned how to become eternal. There is no death for a soul who has learned how to live in truth. Only a continuation, another song, another sunrise, another adventure beyond the stars, the sacred preservation of the name. In Egyptian belief, preserving the name, the Ren was more than survival after death. It was the guarantee that your essence would remain woven into the universe itself as long as someone spoke your name with love. As long as the memory of your kindness lived on, you continued. Not in the cold silence of tombs, but in the living breath of the cosmos. You became a note in the eternal music. Life is sacred in every moment. The Book of the Dead whispers across centuries. Every thought today, every decision today, every word today is already shaping your future beyond death. You are writing your eternity now with each breath, with each choice to love deeper, to forgive, faster, to stand truer. You are already walking your sacred journey. There is no need for distant magic. You may think, but I have no ancient spells, no sacred books. You don't need them because the most powerful magic has always been within you. Kindness, courage, compassion, and truth. Every act of love is a spell. Every moment of forgiveness is a bridge across the stars. You are already weaving your soul's path through the universe. The universe does not forget those who choose light. Why do some souls continue to shine for centuries while others are forgotten? Because those souls chose to live not for themselves, but for something greater. They did not seek fame. They sought truth in the universe, vast, ancient, and kind. Never forgets a soul that chooses to love by light. The journey to awakening begins. You don't need to wait for some perfect moment. You don't need to wait for a cosmic sign. You can begin your awakening today. Let go of the old burdens. Forgive yourself. Stand up after every fall, eyes still set on the rising sun. Rebirth doesn't happen somewhere outside. It happens quietly inside your heart, with each choice to live in truth and love. From my heart to yours, if there's one thing I could whisper to you now, it would be, don't fear the darkness you must walk through. Don't despair when the way seems lost, because every step through the night is carving your wings of light. One day when you look back, you'll see not a single tear was wasted, not a single heartbreak was meaningless. Every hardship was shaping you into someone who could soar across the stars, into someone who could rise, reborn into someone who carries the universe within their own heart. You are light, you always have been, in your sacred journey. Luminous, fragile, magnificent is just beginning. See you again at the next gateway. Thank you.